The 2022 Minnesota legislative session is a few months away, but state lawmakers are out on the road this week for a tour of projects eligible for state bonding. Members of the Senate Capital Investment Committee toured the Arrowhead region by bus to see projects for themselves firsthand. WDSE videographer Steve Ash caught up with the lawmakers during a stop in Grand Rapids.
Well, I used to serve on the bonding committee. I think the bonding tour is important because a lot of times you see a description on paper and you don't really know what it is. Like, for example, a previous bonding year had Hibbing Community College that had a project that was $12 million to reorient the front door. You say, well, that seems like a lot of money to move a door, but it was a lot more than that. Seeing these projects in person really helps you understand what exactly the needs are for each of these individual campuses and why the state should be a part of funding those.
Come on in, let's take a look at the space.
So the first project we're visiting today is at Itasca Community College, and they have, again, it's HEAPR. HEAPR means asset preservation. It's taking care of what we already own, what we already have on these campuses to make sure that they can continue on, so we're not having to tear these properties down at another point in rebuilding.
A social type of gathering for students to build.
The legislature in the even-numbered years always does a bill where we sell general obligation bonds that are paid for with state general fund money that invest in public infrastructure around the state. So leading up to the 22 session, the bonding committees, House and Senate, normally make tours around the state and take a look at public projects that have submitted proposals to the administration for funding.
I don't think we probably have time to go look at some of the old air handling equipment, but it's really old and decrepit from '74. It's outlived its life many times, and it's really inefficient. It needs to be replaced.
Well, some of determining what the priorities for the committee are going to be are just based by getting out on the ground and looking at projects, seeing what the most urgent needs are. There were about $5 billion worth of requests turned into the administration. In June, they tabulated all of that and sent that over to the legislature. So we've picked off a number of projects to take a look at. We're never going to be able to see all of them. We'll get back to St. Paul, and generally the spending gets put into categories, generally about higher education at MnSCU and the University of Minnesota generally get about a third of what's in a capital investment bill. Then there'll be money at DNR, of course. Nobody owns more buildings in the state than the Department of Natural Resources does. Highways, bridges. Of course, the Public Facilities Authority is the agency that does wastewater and water infrastructure. And the state always helps with those kind of investments to relieve some of the local burden on homeowners and businesses that have to pay the costs of wastewater and water infrastructure. We're going to look at the Grand Rapids water treatment plant today. As long as we're here, they've got a pretty significant project that they need to do.
Welcome to Grand Rapids. This is a water treatment center. I'd like to introduce Julie Kennedy as the general manager.
We've got 5 wells. We pull groundwater from 2 different aquifers, one real deep, about 570 feet, the other anywhere from 125 to 175 feet. I would love to answer questions, any of us, or we have tours inside.
If you get somebody from the water treatment facility and the mayor and maybe a couple members from the community to say this is a good idea, those kind of things help. So we do really rely on people that live in any individual district, their testimony to help us get those projects across the finish line. Because if you don't have somebody really serious about it in the community, it makes it harder to pass. So we do need those local folks to help us along the way.
So members will submit bills to the committee for the committee to consider. The governor will come out with his bonding recommendations in January. We'll then try and digest all the bills that have been introduced, what the governor's requests have been, get it into a larger capital investment bill, one bill. The bill that passed in 2020 was about $1.8 billion. It's a good time to invest in public infrastructure. Interest rates are at historic lows. The most recent bond issue that the state went out for in August, we sold bonds to invest in public infrastructure and we received an interest rate of 1.7%. So that's pretty favorable lending time. So it's really a good time to get caught up on some of the deferred maintenance and asset preservation we have around the state.
The biggest goal of the 3-day bonding tour is really, again, back to what we already talked about, and that's just seeing these projects in person, being able to look with your own eyes, touch with your own hands, understand what these projects are, so that way when the committee goes back to St. Paul, they're going to be talking to individuals who might be looking at a piece of paper that says reorient a front door for $12 million, and these people from the committee will be able to say, no, wait a minute, that's not what it is. Here's the whole scope of it, to be able to help the legislature get a bill like this, a bonding bill, across the finish line.